Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Professor Natalie Games. I'm Dr. Natalie Van Duzen, a professor at the University of Alberta, and I have just finished reacting to the main storyline of God of War Ragnarok. So it's time to move on to one side quest that I had specifically requested to see in this gameplay footage by the wonderful Cleansed in Fire, and then after that, Valhalla DLC. So we finished the main storyline, and I am going to now be turning to this video about King Hrolf Kraki. So let's do it.
Might I suggest the ominous broken gravestone?
The hilt of a sword.
Brother, I know that sword hilt. Tread carefully. You of all people know how weapons can carry ghosts.
If it does not help us find the Norns, it can wait.
Another gravestone. But this one's intact.
Aye, and with a keyhole tailor-made for the hilt we found. I was afraid of that. Kraki the Zealot! For the king! Good riddance, you feckless ball bag!
Okay, so I will say more about King Hrolf himself later, but one of the things I will say is that in the saga of King Hrolf Kraki, it's related that he had 12 berserkers who are kind of serving him, are in his inner circle, or his Hirð, as it would have been called in the Viking Age. And one of them is named Haki and Freyr, or Haki the Valiant. Although it can also mean stout. So it's unclear exactly which one it means. Probably Valiant, given the fact that he's one of his berserkers, but one never knows. So indeed, this is probably what that comes from. Freyr being one of the berserkers that you fight that's associated with King Hrolf is probably from Haki and Freyr.
You knew this warrior.
Do me a favor, brother. You see any more of these ghostly berserker tossers, give them the same. You'll be doing the Nine Realms a favor.
Did these warriors wrong you at some point, Mimir? You're quite agitated, even for you.
No need to rehash ancient history if it's all the same to you.
Very well. Another berserker gravestone.
After the field of Callus. For King Hrolf!
Only more of this king.
He's not worth wasting my breath.
Yep, so Hrolf is one of the other berserkers of the 12 that King Hrolf assembles.
His berserker champions even less so. Trash. The lot of them.
Why wait until now to speak of them?
Before, there was nothing to be done. But finding that hilt changed things. Freya, earlier you mentioned that Freyr was one of Alfheim's first visitors. Care to elaborate? I wasn't in these lands at the dawn of realm travel.
Well, we believed for a long time that all the giants had died in the flood, until one of them appeared in Vanaheim. Her name was Gerd, and she came offering to teach us the secrets of traveling between realms using Bifrost light. Freyr became immediately infatuated with her. He always yearned to wander, and along came someone who could truly show him how. So, wander they did, exploring the world tree from root to branch. But one day, it came time for Gerd to wander away. Freyr was heartbroken, and resolved himself to perform some great feat to win her back. He set his aim on the grandest of gestures. He intended to be the first to find the elusive source of Bifrost light.
Brother, wait. Do you notice that?
A gravestone. No doubt a berserker awaits.
All right, so that is a much better story for Gerðr than the mythology affords her. So I talked a couple episodes ago about that myth that involves Freyr and Gerðr and how he gives up his sword among a lot of other things that happen in the pursuit of trying to get the giantess Gerðr to marry him. He sends his servant Skirnir on his behalf in order to try to at first bribe her and then eventually threaten her. And eventually she goes very much against her will in order to marry Freyr. But I like this because I always feel really sad for Gerda in the mythology and the story that she's given. And I like this rewriting of her story and one that gives her a lot more agency and a lot more, I guess, of an active role in her relationship with Freyr and the outcome of their relationship. So very much something that I appreciate that the game creators have done here.
Y'all see the stolid.
Nothing!
And now, invoking Lyra after what they did.
Lyra? I've never heard of it.
It was a peaceful kingdom, full of artists and poets. But it fell to ruin long ago.
And these berserkers were responsible.
Them and their accursed King Hrolf. What little blood I have still boils at the thought.
Your former home, I assume.
Let's just take this victory and move on, eh?
There is no need to shoulder this burden on your own.
Admittedly, you're shouldering the brunt of the work here. Let me worry about the emotional burden.
I think now is a good time to talk a little bit about King Hrolf Kraki, about the saga of King Hrolf Kraki, and about Lyra. So the saga of King Hrolf Kraki is a saga that relates events that probably took place in the 6th century. So it's one of these sagas that is among the genre known as Fornaldarsögur, or legendary sagas. And these are sagas that are sort of looking back, much in the same way that we look back at around the Middle Ages now. These are people in the medieval period looking back to around the time of the Germanic migration age and a lot of the heroes and kind of legendary events that took place then. And it's looking at people that are associated with what is called the Skjoldung dynasty, which is a dynasty of Danish kings that is descended from the first legendary Danish king, King Skjoldr. And of course, we have Skjoldr in God of War here as well, as has been pointed out several times in the comments. And this is a legendary Danish king who's mentioned by Snorri Sturluson in his Prose Edda, as well as in the Saga of the Inglings in Heimskringla. It's also mentioned in Saxo Grammaticus's Gesta Danorum. So the saga of King Hrolf Kraki, although it relates events that took place in around the 6th century, it was probably composed in the 14th century. So it was a later saga. And this is right around the time that the Fornaldarsögur were starting to really be produced kind of en masse. And it only survives in paper copies. So we only have copies of copies, probably of copies, and many degrees of separation from what was the original text. So King Hrolf Kraki himself, he is, like I said, a semi-legendary king who lived in Denmark and is part of the Skjoldung dynasty. Kraki is his byname. It was very common for people in the sagas to go by not just their kind of first name and their relationship to their father or their patronymic, but also a byname or a nickname of some kind. And this could have to do with maybe their appearance. So King Harold Bluetooth, for example, Blauten, probably having to do with the fact that he had a tooth that was dead. It could have to do with maybe a major event that had taken place in that person's life. So like Jerusalem farer is another one. So someone who had undertaken a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And there's kind of a lot of different ways in which people end up coming by their nicknames. And Kraki means something along the lines of like pole. And it's probably meant to imply that he was very thin and very tall. So Lyra is an actual place in Denmark. It is on the same island that Copenhagen is on, Sjælland or Zealand, and its Old Norse name is Hleðr or Hleðagarður. And this is the place where King Hrolf Kraki had his hall. And if you are at all familiar with the Old English epic Beowulf, this is all kind of the same sort of material, and the saga elaborates on the material and the story that's told in Beowulf. And the equivalent of King Hrolf in Beowulf is Hroðolf, who is the nephew of King Hroðgar. And I'm showing here a picture of myself outside of some of the ruins of Leira, where it is today. You can go and actually see where the hall of King Hrolf Kraki was. And I'm standing next to kind of those overgrown bumps that show the outline of the hall here. So it's a place you can see today. And of course, there's wetlands nearby as well, which is where you can envision the monster that we find in both Beowulf and the Saga of King Hrolf Kraki emerging from. I have talked in previous videos about how Skopnung is his legendary sword. That's something that's attested in the saga, and it's a really famous sword. It's one of these very famous swords that has not only a name, but kind of a personality of its own. And it shows up not just in this saga, but in some later Icelandic sagas as well.
They gather the fear.
Thief! That sword doesn't belong to you! Go the hole! Eldingar Bengi! Lotsur Eldingar! King Eldingar! Eldingar! Vegor Eldingar! This hill. What is its connection to these spirits?
It's a symbol of their betrayal, their cruelty personified. The sooner we're done with it, the better.
If I can make peace with my blades.
I suppose you're right. If Skofnung rids the land of these bastards, I can stomach its presence a bit longer. Circle the bowl.
Death to the enemies of labor! After me!
Alpha!
This kingdom, Leira, you once lived.
Yeah, so both Kvitserker and Veigarður were among the other 12 berserkers of King Hrolf Kraki. So it's very cool to see them coming up one by one.
There.
Before I shacked up with the Aesir, aye. Another of my spectacular failures.
In capturing these spirits, you seek redemption.
I just want to send these bloody monsters to hell where they belong. Wouldn't exactly call it redemption, but I know I'll feel better once it's over. Bidvar the fierce, Sorrow for the troublesome.
The Alpha will rise again!
One more to go.
This king you spoke of.
He's not really a king. Just called him.
So yeah, we have Böðvar the Fierce. That refers to Böðvar Bjarki. He is one of King Hrolf's berserkers, or his champions, that actually gets a lot more story time in the saga of King Hrolf Kraki. And he proves himself to be a really honorable man. And he is responsible for actually the emergence of Hjalti, who before this time was actually this very cowardly individual that was going by a different name. And his name was Höttur. And he is this character who he is kind of being bullied by all of the other retainers at the king's court. They're all throwing bones at him. And then Böðvar comes to the hall and he sees this taking place, this kind of bullying of this individual who has taken all these bones that have been thrown at him and who has sort of made this bone pile around himself in order to protect him from further blows. And Böðvar thinks that this is absolutely unacceptable. So what he ends up doing is he takes Hrolf out. There's this kind of training montage, and Hrolf emerges, and he's a little bit braver. Then Böðvar goes and he takes Hrolf along in order to slay this monster that has been terrorizing the hall at Hlíðargarður pretty much every Yule. And Böðvar kills the monster himself. Then he props the dead monster up and makes it look as though it is attacking, calls King Hrolf and all of his hall and retainers and all of his company out to witness Hrolf going against the monster and killing it. Of course, the monster is already dead, but Hrolf, in doing this, proves his bravery and redeems himself, and he gets a new name, which is Hjalti. And Starolfr is yet another one of the 12.
One because he killed the previous king.
Someone you knew.
Aldith. A kind man. A trusting man.
He trusted this usurper. This Hrolf.
No. Aldith trusted me. And, though that I am, I trusted Hrolf.
So now you seek revenge. A dangerous path.
You're one to talk.
I am an authority on the subject. You would do well to listen.
From under the cruel, Saga, and Freya, prideful. The Berserkers will live forever! From the next dump! I'm tired of you! We pay the...
Yeah, so all of these were additional berserkers or, members of King Hrolf's champions, as they're called in the saga. And it should be noted that in the saga, they're all male. So I've talked a little bit about this idea of female warriors, and actually in the Fornaldarsögur, this is one place where you might expect to see women fighting, because this was sort of the equivalent to fantasy literature for people living in the Middle Ages in Iceland, where these sagas were being composed. However, in the saga, they're all names of male characters.
A visit and give him more of the same.
We have seen this before. Revenge will not bring you peace.
Is it revenge if justice is served?
That is a question you must answer for yourself. The gravestone. Another berserker to fight.
What's wrong with the bearded?
King will lead us to glory! Death to the enemies of labor! Hunting these berserkers. I'm reminded of our search for the Valkyries 2 winters ago.
I can see the similarities, aye.
There is one difference. With the Valkyries, you lacked spite.
Brother, I appreciate the sentiment, but you don't know the full tale.
I know how it feels to be wronged, and how it feels to achieve vengeance. I would hope to spare you the disappointment.
Aye. You then be the American.
This was the last, was it not?
Yep, and this is the 12th.
Only the king remains.
Aye, and if you thought his berserkers were tough, well, I've been thinking about what you said, brother. Maybe it's time to let this go. Slurping up a dead man's soul with this old sword isn't gonna change the past.
It is good to hear you say that. But I plan to face him regardless.
What? After all your lecturing on vengeance and spite?
It is not wise to let a malevolent spirit wander Midgard. But I needed to know you wanted this for the right reasons.
Huh. Appreciate the sentiment, brother. King Hrolf's gravestone. It's reformed. Guess there's only one thing left to do. You can't have it.
My kingdom.
Thank you, brother. Still not sure if that was justice or vengeance.
The two are not always at odds.
What do you intend to do with Skofnung now?
I intend to use it.
No! Don't you understand the legacy that thing carries? Not to mention the souls of evil berserkers.
I will use it for good.
That won't erase its history.
No. But the story of this sword is still being written. Future generations will weigh its good deeds against the bad and decide for themselves.
You've come a long way from when I first met you, brother.
I have had good counsel since then, brother.
I feel like that little bit about the story still being told is not just about the sword. I think that's definitely about Kratos too. And you're probably thinking, obviously, Natalie, that's obviously the case. Um, so that's it for that particular side quest. It's a great saga and it's been translated to English. It's available, I think, as a Penguin Classics. I think it's pretty readily accessible, and I think there are probably older, little clunkier translations available online, but it's a great saga and it's one that's really episodic as well. So it kind of exists in all these different segments, and you'll get to read about the different tales surrounding King Hrolf and his champions, who are here called Berserkers. In this particular rendering, they are very much villainized. They're not good characters, but portrayed very much as heroes in the saga of King Hrolf Kraki. It's also an interesting saga because it's one in which Odin kind of weaves in and out of. He disguises himself. He tricks some of King Hrolf's champions. He gives them his favor, and then he kind of gets mad at them and takes it away. So typical Odin stuff. All right, so from here, I will move on to Valhalla DLC. I will be going a little bit more slowly through episodes in the next couple of months, just because this is kind of the prime conference season for me. I have a lot of conference activity coming up, as well as a lot of research deadlines, things I promised to publish and still need to work on. So I'm going to be putting those at the top of my priority list, but I will be still coming back here and watching and reacting to Valhalla DLC as a way of rewarding myself for doing that work. So thank you as always for watching. Thank you to Cleansed in Fire for this wonderful gameplay and giving me something so great to react to. And of course, Santa Monica Studios for this amazing story. I feel like I'm still going through withdrawals from the main storyline, but it's great to be able to continue my journey with Kratos, Mimir, Freya, and hopefully other characters as well to be seen as we go along. So we'll see you on the next one.